So, my husband is a jokester and a prankster. He has a habit of pulling pranks, especially on my birthdays. He judges my reactions as overreactions and says I should loosen up and be extra happy because he thinks he's making my birthdays extra funny. But it actually upsets me and puts me in a position where I get laughed at and recorded by his family. He planned for my 26th birthday this past week, which was held at a restaurant. I told him I wouldn't go if he was going to pull one of those pranks he's famous for because it's a public place and I didn't want to be publicly humiliated. He swore on his mom, on the Bible, promised me, and brought 2 witnesses. He wrote an agreement stating he'd pay money if he pulled a prank. I believed him and said that I'd go. I had to cancel with my parents who wanted to celebrate at their house. The day of my birthday, I got a text from one of his friend's wives telling me she heard him tell her husband about the prank he was going to pull at me at the restaurant. I was stunned as she detailed what the plan was going to be. I felt so upset and anxious. He went ahead and got to the restaurant to ensure all was set. I ended up deciding not to go. He started calling and then texting, asking where I was, and saying that the party was going to start without me. So I turned my phone off, went to my parents' house and had a small party. I went home at 7 p.m. and found my husband fuming. He lashed out, asking why I didn't show up to the party after he had put money, time, and effort into it. I told him why, and he called his friend's wife a liar, reminded me of all the promises he had made, and accused me of not trusting his word. I said I couldn't take the chance and risk having him ruin another birthday of mine. We had a huge argument. Then he started giving the cold shoulder while pointing out how I embarrassed him and wasted his time and money by not showing up. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You were just pulling a prank on him by not showing up. Why doesn't he find that hilarious? He should loosen up. He's overreacting. Are you even sure he actually likes you? He calls your reaction to being pranked and publicly humiliated, in front of his family no less, overreactions. He doesn't take your feelings seriously or into account at all. Instead, he continues to do it. If his friend's wife were a liar, she wouldn't have been able to go into detail about the prank he'd set up. Every story I've seen about pranking is just immature idiots using pranking as an excuse to be immature idiots. He probably got the friend in on it and was going to carry out the prank so that it wasn't him doing the pranking, thus him not breaking the agreement. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but I feel like if you need him to swear on his mom, swear on the Bible, promise you, bring 2 witnesses, write an agreement stating that he'd pay money if you pulled a prank, and then you still have doubts, it's not a marriage worth being in. I couldn't live with this lack of trust. The fact that you both treated that conversation like it was normal shows how deeply you've gotten yourselves into delusion. Hard agree. I cannot imagine living with and being in a relationship with someone who's that untrustworthy. Not to mention someone who made me the butt of their jokes with other people. Just no. What I want to know is why she ever got married to the idiot who thinks bullying his own partner is funny. Like, surely that's not only developed after the wedding. Also, the fact that OP's parents wanted to celebrate her birthday at home, away from the husband, speaks volumes. My sister Kate and I, female, follow different religions. I'm Catholic and she's evangelical. We have our ideological differences, but we have a very close relationship. After all, it was just me, her, and my mother our entire childhood and adolescence. I was proposed to 3 months ago. I decided I would have a maid of honor, my sister, and no bridesmaid. My fiancé agreed and only chose his best friend. There will be a religious ceremony at the church, and then we'll go to a venue where the party will take place. For me, it's essential to get married in church. It'll happen in 4 months. When I asked Kate to be my maid of honor, she was super excited. But during the preparations, when she learned that I'd have a ceremony at the church, she seemed uncomfortable, but I didn't question it as I waited for her to speak. Well, last week she called me for coffee and said she didn't feel comfortable going to a Catholic church because of her religion, so she couldn't attend the religious ceremony, but she would love to attend the party and participate in everything. She just wouldn't go to the ceremony. I got really upset and said, "This is an important moment for me. much more than the party, and I wish all the people I love were there, including you." She replied, "I don't feel comfortable going into churches other than my own, but I'll participate in everything else." Me, "I don't feel comfortable going into churches either, but I went with the greatest honor to your wedding because I know it was important to you and me." She stuck to her decision, and I felt so tired and sad that I just got up and walked away. After a lot of thinking, I called her and said, "If one of the people I love the most can't stay 2 hours at the most important moment for me, even though I asked you to be there, then I think that you shouldn't come to my wedding. If you can't make a concession for me, I shouldn't make one for you." Well, she keeps texting me, saying that I'm overreacting and that I should respect her stance. She and my mother are pressuring me to go back on my decision. I'm just really upset. It's something extremely important to me. I'd like to have her there by my side, but she doesn't want to, and I felt betrayed because I did it for her, and she won't do it for me. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If her faith is that fragile that being in a building where people practice a slightly different method of faith to the same God she worships, then she's beyond ridiculous. Write her off. Her fragile faith is more important to her than her family. A maid of honor who feels it's okay with refusing to be at the wedding? Unbelievable. People of different religions go to churches for weddings all the time. I'm Protestant, and I've never had an issue attending Catholic churches for various weddings. That's crazy pants. No one is forced to take communion or cross themselves. She's being completely unreasonable. This right here, I'm a witch. I still stood up for my sister at her Catholic wedding inside of a church. I didn't go up in flames or melt. She can't be your maid of honor if she isn't at the ceremony. That's where the paperwork gets signed that she needs to witness. Ordinary guests can RSVP to be at the reception, but not the ceremony. The maid of honor cannot. The maid of honor has specific responsibilities, including being a witness to the wedding, and a sibling ought to be able to deal with this. In my opinion, you should stick to your guns and say that if she can't attend the wedding, she isn't welcome at the party. Ask her to point out how attending this wedding is contrary to her faith. I had a daughter several years ago. My girlfriend and I broke up before we knew she was pregnant, and by the time my daughter was born, she was dating another guy. He seemed like a nice guy and wanted to be in my daughter's life, and I wasn't interested in staying in her life, so we all just agreed that it would be best if he raised her instead. However, I didn't give up my rights because I feared I'd regret it someday. I was right because as time passed, I started to regret my decision and decided to meet my daughter, and she wanted to meet me as well. This has so far been the best decision I've ever made. She's adorable, and I love her so much. I met her a few months ago. I asked her mom if I could take her on a trip. Unfortunately, since we returned from our trip, my ex has stopped me from seeing my daughter, always making excuses like she's busy with homework or not home now. Yesterday, my daughter called me and angrily asked why I left again. I asked her what she meant, and she said that that was what her mom had told her. I called her mom and blew up at her and asked her why she would say that to her, and she started yelling at me, saying that I made their life so much harder by being a Disney dad because my daughter keeps comparing me and her stepdad and asked him why he doesn't play with her or take her to a trip. And recently, she stopped calling him dad and then hung up the phone. So I came back into my daughter's life, and it's been going really well, but now my ex says I'm the idiot. Edit. I can't take my daughter half the time because it's too soon. I've only been in her life for 4 months. She barely knows me. So, you missed the late night feedings, the diaper changes, the sleep deprivation, the sickness, the tantrums, all the first, etc. And now you just want to waltz in and play daddy for the good part? Yeah, you are the idiot. They're right. You can't just waltz into her life for the fun stuff. You ignored the child for the first years. If you want a relationship, you start by spending time together daily, not whisking her off for vacation. You said it's too early for you to take her 50%, but why is it not too early to take her for a whole week on a vacation? If you're serious, then take her 1 day a week and gradually build your relationship. Everyone's the idiot here. You've only been back in her life for 4 months, and her mom let you take her on a trip? A complete stranger who took so many years to decide to show up. What kind of parent thinks that's a good idea? You won't need to go to court and get visitation settled and pay up or shut up. I'm hoping my assumption that you haven't been paying child support is not true. Otherwise, many years of back child support will hurt. I mean, that is a long time for her to raise a child and for you to come in and do only the fun stuff. You are being a Disney dad. And while I don't think it's necessarily bad, I think it's unfair to the mother of your child and the family dynamic at play. You're not really raising her. If you want a bigger role, you should ask for custody. But right now, I'd say you are the idiot. I'm not banning my son, young teen, from hanging out with this friend, we'll call him Hank, altogether. Just limiting it. Hank might have some disability. I don't know the correct terminology, but Hank is very clingy and needy. He's always saying things like, "You're my best friend. Am I your best friend?" And saying what he would sacrifice for my son and asking weird hypotheticals. It's exhausting just listening to these interactions, much less experiencing them. I noticed my son wasn't spending time with his other friends because he always needed to be with Hank, who had no other friends. And Hank doesn't want to hang around my son's other friends. So I told my son he needs to learn to prioritize himself, take time for his other friends and hobbies, and not constantly babysit Hank's insecurities. My son said he'd feel guilty and he didn't want Hank to feel rejected. So I said to tell Hank that hangouts are limited to twice a week and not on both weekend days, per his mother, because that's the new rule. Although my son frequently says he feels guilty and asks for an exception because, quote, Hank says he feels really down right now. I've noticed he also seems happier and more energetic. He looks more well-rested and isn't getting his schoolwork done at the last second anymore. My husband thinks I'm being too controlling, and our son's too old to tell him who to hang out with. The other boy's mother also reached out to me and said she wanted to talk, although I have yet to respond. I assume she disapproves. Even my son, who admitted he is less stressed now, said he feels guilty and that I'm being mean. But am I? It's hard to argue with a majority, but also, it's hard to argue with results. Am I being a witch to this poor kid? Not the idiot. Your son's being treated like an emotional support animal and is being isolated. It might not be intentional, but it's still happening. Your son feeling guilty about not being able to hang out with Hank all the time doesn't mean it's healthy for him to be with Hank all the time. Frankly, it sounds akin to an abusive relationship. Feel too guilty to leave, isolation, being someone's only support system, etc. Hank needs to talk to a therapist or an adult in his life or something. But all of Hank's problems are not your son's problems. And if Hank refuses to hang out with the other kids, it's not on your son to soothe his anxiety every time. Hank is insecure, but that doesn't mean your child has to be his crutch. It's a valuable lesson for all when it comes to friendships and romantic relationships. You can't infinitely actively sacrifice for someone. You deserve support and happiness too. You can't help someone that's unwilling to help themselves. And 100% of that responsibility is on you to make their lives tolerable. However, you won't always be there to establish boundaries on your son's behalf. This is something he'll have to learn to do for himself in the future. So maybe you need to circle back with him soon and talk about how things have changed since you imposed this limit. Sure, he feels guilty, but what else is he feeling? What has changed in his life now? What are the positives and negatives of this change? As for Hank's mother, that's a different subject, and you aren't necessarily obligated to explain yourself to her. I've been dating my girlfriend for over a year now. She has one daughter, Haley, teen, who has a birthday in 2 weeks. I have a daughter of my own and I share joint custody. We'll call her Daisy, a tween. Her mother sees her on the weekends, but she doesn't care for Daisy outside of her weekend visits due to her struggles. Even then, when she's returned, she doesn't seem fully cared for, but that's what the court ordered. Our breakup was mutual, so we maintained a relatively chill and friendly co-partnership despite her issues. I've been going through hard times. I got laid off from my job 2 months ago and only recently found another position to take up. While my girlfriend does crafts to make money, our savings dwindled during that time. So when my daughter's birthday came up, it was either we threw a party or got her the present she wanted. some $150 microscope kit for kids. My girlfriend and I decided it was better to celebrate privately with a gift for her to enjoy. We didn't invite family or friends over to avoid extra cost and judgments. We wanted her to enjoy her gift and play games with us. Daisy seemed a little disappointed when we explained how we would handle her birthday prior, but she seemed to be having a good time and was happy when she knew what to expect. Now it's my girlfriend's daughter's birthday. We now have some money, so I wanted to throw her a nice teen birthday. I'm not sure if this is still a thing people consider a big deal, but when I was a teenager, all my female friends had big parties for this birthday. During the planning, my ex suggested buying a full sheet birthday cake for Daisy, so when Haley's friends sing her happy birthday, she could also get her Make-A-Wish moment this year and feel special with her sister. She even suggested inviting 2 of Daisy's friends over to spend the night away from the older girls. I told her no, it would be Haley's special day, but Daisy seemed content with what she had. It has also been over a month, and it'd be a bit ridiculous. She accused me of only caring about my new kid and that she'd never snub Daisy the way I am to Haley with her boyfriend's kid, which I believe she does for the sake of that kid. She's been very hostile towards me since. It doesn't seem like she'll get over this soon. Am I the idiot, or was this an unreasonable request? To clarify, Daisy's used to the typical middle-class child party. She wanted something at Dave & Buster's with her friends, but we couldn't do it at the time. As for Haley's, this year we're renting out a local venue with a pool and hosting a party there with a DJ. You are the idiot. The fact you didn't have money a month ago and do now doesn't change the fact that you're throwing an elaborate party for one daughter after having canceled a birthday party for your other one. Of course she's taking from that she's less valued. Or worse, it'll look like you skipped out on her party so you could afford your girlfriend's daughter's birthday. Yeah, the fact that more money's being thrown at the other kid a month later for a full birthday party is just salt in the wound. I might not make a cake and invite Daisy's friends. I might offer her a makeup party on a different date instead. But your ex is right, and you're treating Daisy poorly. There's no reason not to make up for having failed to give her a party. Why are you paying for such a grand birthday party for your girlfriend's daughter? Why didn't you put that money back into the savings account that you had to raid? Why isn't your girlfriend, the birthday girl's mom, paying for this? Unless you won the lottery, how the heck did you suddenly have such a change in finances? Where's Haley's dad in all of this? Why hasn't her mom been saving up for a big party? Also, tell your girlfriend to get a job. What is this, 1940? Agree. She's not even his daughter. She's the girlfriend's daughter. OP is technically under no obligation to spend on a birthday party for a child who isn't even his, while his child gets shunted off to the side. You are a terrible father, and honestly, maybe your ex is the better parent. Maybe one day when your daughter leaves you, you'll finally understand how badly you messed up.